And 1, 2, 3. We are not live. We are not live, but we are. Hello, lovely Gary. How are you today?
Hello, Rachel. How are you today?
Hot.
Are you? Well, we
I
know
know.
you're hot stuff. We know you're hot stuff.
Yeah, so hot. No, because I've got a light here. I've got a light here in a very small room, and I've got the window open. But ooh, it's hot. It's hot, baby.
Ah,
Anyway, here we are with our tea time tutorial. Thank you so much, lovely YouTuber, for joining us. If you don't know how this works, let me just tell you, we do a mindful exercise. This is not a channel to teach you how to be an amazing watercolor artist or anything like that, although you will learn, because I've been learning for a year with Gary now, and my skills have definitely improved. The idea is that we give you a 20-minute break from life. We give you a mindful exercise, a doodle, making marks, a bit of painting, a bit of kind of thoughtfulness. And it just gives your brain a rest from all the stuff out there for 20 minutes. Now, if you want to crack on with that art exercise, you can, because I've put the time codes below and you can go. But if you want to stay with us, we always have a little chat about life and life's lessons, and we talk about what's happened to us in the week sometimes, or things that have just happened in general. And you never know, you might find a little nugget of information which helps you. So if you're going off to the art, press the button below and we'll see you there. Goodbye. But if you are staying with us, let's have a little chat. So now, I was talking to my teenage daughter the other day. She was getting herself in a right old state. I do think that for teenagers in this world, it's very difficult. I think, as she was talking to me, Gary, she had her phone in her hands like this, and she's going, and so, and so, oh, she's messaging, and then it says, oh, it's TikTok, and I put the phone down. But then I said to her, right, you know what you need to do? I said, log out of every social media app for 48 hours. Log out. It was like, and I could see the pain, and I would do it. So do it now. Log out. So she did it. She put the phone down. She started talking to me. And then I said, right. And now what you need to do is ground yourself. And she said, what is that? And I said, you need to go outside. It's a lovely day. Sit in that garden for 20 minutes with your feet on the grass. So that is, you could walk on a beach. You could walk by a lake. You could walk in a park. You could even just step outside your door and walk round the block. It doesn't matter if you live in a high-rise area. Walk on that floor, breathe in the air, have some sunlight on your face. Even if it's not sunny, the sun is there behind the clouds. So have daylight on your face. And you just ground yourself. I mean, it literally is like putting your feet on the ground. But what it does, if you don't carry your phone and do it at the same time, it's really important you don't, is it kind of brings you back to awareness. It brings you back to the moment. I always think it's great if you can go barefoot, although of course, if you're in a park, public park, wouldn't probably advise it. But if you're in your grass or whatever, or on the beach, you can take your shoes off. I know it's probably cold water, but walk in that water. Water is fantastic. There is something that is very grounding about it. As I say, don't have your phone and just concentrate on your feet and how they feel. They feel, because what that is doing is what we do on the channel. It's mindfulness. It's bringing you back. So when she was sat there going, say this, and you need to stop all of that noise, and you just need to focus on how your feet are, because it will stop the panic. It will stop the spinning. It will stop the overthinking. So it's really important to ground yourself. So I just wondered, Gary, I know your understanding of this, but what were your thoughts on grounding, and what do you do to ground yourself?
I just think the word grounding is this new sort of vocabulary that we use within, at the moment, don't we? And people think, well, like your daughter said, what do you mean by that? Grounding covers a lot of things, but basically it is just getting out and stopping and focusing on not these trivial things, these electronic things around you, but actually being in the space, being in the now. And there is definitely something about the connection between our physical, the bottom of our feet, and the earth. What it is, I don't know, but it's definitely, I think it's probably sort of like a magnetic-y, electric thing going through your body into the ground. Water, I think, is a great connection to like bring you into the space. I love water by a river. I know you go and walk by is it the river or the canals near you,
yes,
Rachel?
the river. Yes. Yeah, and maybe you could even take a bath. I find baths are amazing. Yeah. I don't know if that, I mean, I once read, and I don't know, people might listen to this and go, nonsense. But I once read that, you know, when you have a bath, sometimes if you are feeling, you know, very low or lonely or depressed or whatever, and you have a bath, it's almost like you go back to the womb. You know, you're surrounded by fluid, and it's warm and it's comforting. And they do say, as you just mentioned there, about grounding next to water. So there is something about water. I mean, obviously we're mostly water, so it is a very important thing. And I think if you surround yourself by, you look at it, you feel it, you touch it, you taste it, it will help you for a period of time, at least ground you, and hopefully stop the overthinking.
Yes.
Or you could just put all the apps back on your phone and go absolutely mental like the teenagers do. Can I just say, I read something about that just very briefly, that a lot of these apps, they have all of these noises or flashes, and it's designed to draw you in. You know, when we're kids and you go into the arcades and things, and you've got the slot machines and you hear all the noises and the and the bum, and you find it draws you in, and it's addictive and it's exciting. That's why app developers have all the noises, like Instagram. When you get a message, it sort of goes, I can't remember the thing, it's you know, and it sort of pulls you in, and that's not good for your nervous system, because you are constantly, well, we're not designed for that. We're never designed to be 18 highways in our heads. We just went out of a cave and got food. You know, we were not designed to have all of this stuff. So it's really important to step away from it, which is what we do with our mindful tuition here and our art sessions. So Gary, shall we do our lovely art session?
Let's do a bit of artwork. Right, I'm going to put my glasses on. All right, so I thought what we would do is we're going to think about going for a walk out in the countryside, but we're going to visualize that with a painting. And we're going to paint some trees. But also within this little sort of session, this mindful art session, we're going to sort of try and think about how trees in the distance are much smaller than the ones closest to us, and how we meander and walk through. It could be along a field or from a park or something like that. All right, I've got a sheet of cartridge paper, but it could be as simple as paper from the copier. I've got my palettes of paints here, so I just use ordinary watercolor paints. But you know, if you haven't got paints at home, what you could look for is the food cabinet and have a look for some, you know, some paint. It could be that you've got some green food coloring that you could use for paint. You might have blue and yellow that you can mix together to make green. You might have some really strong coffee that you could paint the trunks of your trees with that first of all, and then you could use the coloring from food coloring. Whatever you've got to hand, it could be that you just end up sort of doing it with pencils, or it could be felt tips, whatever. All right, let's just first of all, to help us think about the trees getting smaller to larger, I'm going to just take a largish paintbrush. If you haven't got a large paintbrush, you can use a piece of sponge or something like that. But the largest you've got, and I'm going to just dip it in some clean water. In fact, here you can see in the screen, I've got 2 giant jars of water. I always have one clean water and one dirty. And not right at the top, but just part way, maybe just where I'm going to paint down. You're just going to paint a wet line across there, like that. And then you're going to bring a wet line down to maybe halfway. And then we can, from that halfway down the page, you can bring a wet line down again to here and along the bottom like that. So I've gone across the top, stopped, I've picked up some more water, gone halfway down the page, stopped, come across down to the same distance at the bottom, and then I've just done across the bottom. Now, they are our lines that the trees are going to grow on. So you don't necessarily for the next bit have to have the biggest brush, but you can have whatever brush you want to. I'm just going to pick up a little bit of green paint. And in fact, all this is going to be is almost just giving us a line. Just imagine that is just where the trees are going to grow like that. So just really just thinking about that shape really. And the water just helps it just start to just sort of blend and bleed a little bit, because we don't mind that. We don't mind it blending and bleeding. In fact, we can color in a few bits later on. Now, up here, now when we were young, we drew pictures. We had the grass just at the bottom here, and all the rest was probably sky, or halfway. Half was the bottom, was the grass, halfway was the sky. In fact, actually, depending on what your view or perspective is, mostly the sky should just be a little bit of blue at the top. And I'm just going to find a little bit of blue just to put in the sky. So I'm just doing a very light watery sky. I'm just using a lot of water really, and I'm just going to blend in a little bit of sky along the top here. So really easy to be quite honest, not really doing much at all. I've got my hairdryer, so and just because I'm speeding up the process, I'm just going to lightly dry this so that I can then paint on it again. If you know, you might use your hairdryer, or you might just let it dry in its natural time. You know, that's fine. And in fact, you know, these are exercises, though we might do them in like 10 minutes, 20 minutes. You take your time. They don't have to be as fast as how we do them. You can just take your time about it. And there's always saying, like, there's nothing so sort of relaxing as watching paint dry or taking so long. So we're just speeding it up just slightly. If you find that you've got a little, it pulls a little bit, or you've got some pools of water, I just use a little bit of tissue, and I just dab it with a little bit of tissue, just pull it up a little bit. I'm just going to do that. Then next, what you're going to start off with is you're going to just start off with just the tree trunk. So you're not worrying about the shape of the trees at the moment or where they are, just about the tree trunk. So you just do a few little groupings. And it's not like you can build in more as you go along, but you're just going to start off with just a few. So I'm just going to pick up, it could be black paint, it could be brown paint, but sort of like a darkish color paint really that you should have for the tree trunks. And so on the top here, I'm going to use a smaller brush, but you could, I will do it with a big brush as well to show you it. But I'm just going to do just some thin little lines, just some tiny 1, 2, a little capture of 3, maybe up the top there. Just that's all I'm going to do. And if you think just, you might just have the odd little branch of that coming, but nothing too much. It's not, they almost look like a little bit like cactuses at the moment.
Well, do you know what? Before you, yeah, they do now. But before you put the little branch on there, they reminded me of those. I don't know the name of them, but in France you see them a lot. Those tall, long green trees.
Yeah, yes, you do. Now, what are they called? Someone's there. People are shouting at us as we're doing this and saying it's so and so. They're letting us know. So
yeah,
we'll have to Google that. Have a look at that. Okay, so do 3 there, and then I would do 2 slightly larger over this side, so we're not going to clash into here. We're going to just do slightly larger 3, and just a slightly larger ones, longer ones. And again, the branches, we could do some branches at the top. So a few more there. So they've got slightly bigger. So what we're thinking about is like how things get bigger as they come down the page. And then we're going to do another, maybe just let's break up the scenario a bit and not do 3 this time. Maybe we just have 2 here, 2 little trunks of trees here. We can just add a few more branches. I'm not really being too exact. I'm just thinking about my trees at the moment. This could be like a winter scene. So you can see what we've done. Tiny, sort of a little bit bigger, getting a little bit bigger. And so that allows us to create a bigger tree down here at the bottom. So we can have a much bigger trunk. We can have a trunk that sort of goes in, slightly flares out and comes into the. But I don't want to, I'm not going to draw into my other trees. I'm just going to do it just like that. So there you go. There's those trees. How have you gone? Let's see where you are with your trees. Right? You're just your skeleton trees. Aha!
There we are.
Do you know that? That's pretty good. That's all right.
Yeah.
That's lovely.
Do you know,
Well done.
I don't know what it is, Gary, that my paper, I mean, you said you're just using photocopier paper, and I am. But my paper looks so, can you hold yours close?
No.
Because mine looks
no, mine, sorry, it's not, it's actually, you could use photocopy paper. Mine's like a lightweight cartridge.
okay.
So it's a lightweight cartridge paper, which doesn't wrinkle up so much. You know, go with the wrinkles. Don't worry about it too much. You can, there is, which we must do as a lesson at some point, you can what's called stretch the paper before you actually start to paint on it. And then that dries like crisp as a drum. And I have done it in the past, even with paper out of the printer paper, and you can just you slightly wet it, you stretch it with a bits of tape and let it then dry, and it dries really crisp and tight. And then when you add your wet media, it doesn't buckle up so much. So, but no, don't worry about it. I'm going to just give that just a little bit of a dry. So, and then so I've got that just dry. So now we've got a chance to now put on the foliage and the shape of the trees. Now the shape of the trees could change completely depending on how you put the water down. So I'm going to just put a little bit of water, and I'm just going to, so think about maybe how much water you put on there, maybe not too much. And then you're going to use hues. I'm going to use this. I'm going to use this brush. And color-wise, it doesn't necessarily have to be green. So trees, you know, you can have those lovely, like those acer trees, which is a nice sort of like reddy color, reddy orange colors, burgundy color. So we could use just very much. So I hold the brush, I'm holding the brush away from me. I'm not painting from the top down. I'm painting from the branches up, and I'm just going to drag some of that paint up like so. So I'm just going to bring it up, and I'm going to just let the water. You see that comes really quite soft then. Have you put water on before there, Rachel, before you've started brushing in? So yeah, you've wet them?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to repeat that again. So I'm going to just put some water around these mid branches here, like that. And then I'm going to bring in some more colors. So these ones could be more of a golden color. Maybe these are a more sort of like ochre golden color. I always test. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing. I'm testing. I pick up my color. I always test, like I've got these little dabs at the side. I always test my colors as I go before I put them on my paint. So I just can see what sort of colors they are. I quite like. I like the way the water is starting to just make almost make it more softer, the branches. I'm going to add in with that yellow, that ochre color, a little bit of green. So there's sort of like a yellow and green color like that. I can add, if I feel like they're disappearing into the background, what I might do is actually add a little bit of orange or something like that. Just give it a little bit more, pick up a little bit more color into there. Just add a little bit more. Just dabbing it in, just tickling it in. That's what I'm doing. I'm not trying at this point. I'm not painting actual leaves. What I'm doing is I'm tickling in a little bit of color, and I'm allowing the color to pool. So because I put some water on it first, what will happen is that the color will sort of pool into like little mini puddles, and those little mini puddles would be darker, and that actually gives a little bit more darker density to the foliage as well. Let's try another one. Let's go. As we're getting slightly bigger, get my brushes. Here we go. So now we can start going much more. I think we can go sort of shades of green as we get nearer. So we can just really start to think. I've not added so much water this time. I've sort of gone straight in with the paint on the brush and then just started to add that in. I can add a little bit more water onto it as well, just so we can get that coming through it. Nice. And again, we're thinking about what does that brush do? How can we get that brush to, you know, make our sort of like the shapes of the leaves and everything? We're using the edge of the brush to sort of make. I've got a bit of a pine tree thing coming up here now. I feel see through some of the branches like that. All right. So I'm going to just give that a little bit of a dry. So that's dried quite a bit. And what I will do is not that I want to make it too, I'm just doing a really light wash of just where you've got white areas, you could just do a little wash of almost like a tint of water with a tint of green in it. So it just starts to, so it's not stark white. It is like just a little bit with the green of the grass or something like that. But as long as what you don't want it to do is you don't really want it to start to blend too much in with the foliage of the trees. But the tree which is in the nearest to the front, you can just add instead of titivating the other ones, I would titivate the one in front or add some more detail to it, because that's the one that's in the foreground, and that's the one that you want it to stand out more. You can down on the just on the ground level, you could add some blades of grass. And there you are. How have you done, Rachel? Let's have a look. Let's have a look how you're doing.
You know, I've really enjoyed this one. Really.
I love it. I just, you know, and again, while we're doing that, we've been talking about grounding, we've been talking about walking out with nature. And so if you need a focus when you're out in nature, it's just like maybe start thinking about this exercise and looking at the trees in the far distance and what are they looking like? What are the colors there? Do they, as you're looking at them, obviously they should be looking at smaller. What about the tree right in front of you? The one, you know, we're not asking you to hug it, but, you know, the one that's really there in front, you know, it looks much bigger. So that's got more detail in it because you're close up to it. The one in the further in the distance is going to be much more, it's just about the shape. That's all you've got. Lovely.
So now, once again, you see, I have tree envy, Gary.
But do you know, is it you, at least you've got your trees down, you've started your trees. The next lot of trees, you think, right, so you need to look at those and you think, right, now I really like the way I've done that, but I'm going to improve on that one, I'm going to work there. But you've never looked, or we haven't worked through perspective at all anymore, any of these lessons beforehand. So this is making you look at things in the distance and bringing it down the page. If you're doing a landscape in this portrait format, so where the way the papers is in portrait mode, so the paper's going long ways like that, you need to be able to have a focus. You wouldn't necessarily put the tree right in the middle, you put it over to one side slightly, but the eye should take you across and zigzag and take you up through the picture. That's the idea of composition. So you've learned a bit about perspective, you've learned a little bit about composition, we've learned a little bit about actually like how far the sky is up in the air to where the rest of it's all about the ground and the grass that we walk on. So you've learned just by a little bit of play, a hell of a lot of things that you perhaps hadn't thought of before.
Yeah, and I think actually, you know, one interesting thing is I've done the primary school thing of when someone says do a tree, you just instantly think of rounds. Whereas with yours, see that there are different trees there. You know, there are different types of trees, which make it more interesting. So as you say, start looking around at your surroundings, which, as we've said, is a grounding thing. It's a great thing to do anyway, and then incorporate it into your artworks and start thinking about those trees. You could even take some pictures of trees and then represent them.
Yeah, exactly. Take some pictures and just look at just the shape. If you just draw a silhouette around those shapes, like you said, there was those when it started off, you thought about those trees you see in France and in Italy up in the mountains and things. But then, you know, our British countryside has the oak and the shape of the oak tree, maybe a bit like sort of these sort of trees. And then you've got a nice sort of like a sort of a pine type tree that might grow out with big boughs rather than looking like a Christmas tree. It's actually like a big sort of like I'm trying to think, sort of like a is it like a cedar tree? I think they're amazing. Cedars, really beautiful, massive trees. Lovely.
There you go. Lovely. Well, if you liked it, we would love it if you would leave a like or a comment below. It does help us to get our content out there into the big wide world of YouTube. Forgot the time we're on there. So that would be great.
We were so grounded, Rachel. We were so grounded, we didn't even know where we were anymore.
I didn't even know where I was. I did not know where I was in that moment. I was like, what are we doing? Who are we? Anyway, but thank you so much, lovely Gary. And as always, we will have another tea time tutorial, which will load every Friday on our YouTube account. But we have got lots of those tutorials for you to have a look at right now. So many great exercises for you to play with. Thank you for all of your lovely comments and all the people who are enjoying this content and following along with us every week.